You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, nutrition, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere, anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your hosts, Dr. Justin Marchegiani and Barris Harvey, as they answer your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Beyond Wellness Radio. In today's show, we are talking about detoxification. But before we go there, I want to let you guys know you guys should go to beyondwellnessradio.com and hop on the newsletter. By doing this, you guys will be the first to get all the email updates and to know about all of our new features. Also, go to justinhealth.com and hop on the newsletter there. Dr. Justin has a thyroid video series, which allows you to break down and to view and to learn more about your thyroid. Also, if you guys are interested in learning more or have other issues and you want to meet with a doctor, just know straight away he does work virtually. So you can get a free consultation just to ask him questions to make sure you're on the right track, and he can definitely help you out there. Same thing goes here. You can go to reallyhealthynow.com and subscribe there. You can also contact me if you have any questions. And we love hearing questions and getting them in and being able to help you guys out. We also have a questions thing on beyondwellnessradio.com. And if you guys want to hear your questions just being answered, if you feel other people might have the same situation, because oftentimes they do, and we end up making an entire episode on these questions that you guys have. So you guys have questions, you guys can leave them down there, and it provides a way for us to feed you guys more, right? Feed you guys more knowledge. So go to beyondwellnessradio.com and hop on the list, and you guys will be the first to get these episodes in your inbox. So how's it going today, Dr. Justin?
Barris, it's going pretty darn good. I actually just got married 2 weeks ago and just got back from my honeymoon, so I'm feeling pretty refreshed, and the holidays are almost here, so pretty darn good. How about yourself?
I'm feeling well as well. So first of all, I want to say congratulations. So now I don't have to say, your fiance, your wife now, and you're all settled in Austin, Texas.
Absolutely.
Because I know a couple months ago, it's like back and forth, flying back and forth, and so now you're settled in and almost getting your location together. So the people in Austin, if they want to see you face to face, will soon be able to do that.
Absolutely. I see a couple patients that have come to my house as well. I got 2 patients that are coming over today, but yeah, I mean, lots of virtual patients from all over the world. So it's pretty exciting and I'm pretty darn busy. So
yeah, definitely. So listeners out there, let's make them even more busy and ask them a bunch of questions, right?
Absolutely.
So in today's podcast, we're going to break down detoxification. If you're on our email list, you'll be able to hear this, right away. And, you'll hear it right before the holidays. If not, if you're hearing this on iTunes, maybe you're hearing this, January 1st, and you want to know, you want to hit those goals, right? And that New Year's resolution kind of thing. So you want to start things off right. So a lot of people go through these detoxes and cleanse. So I think one of the first things to understand is like, what is a detox or what is a cleanse? And maybe there's, different ideas and perspectives around them, but let's just go to the basics and like, what is a detox?
So detoxification is happening all the time, right? Like the whole idea that someone says, oh, let's run you through a detox. I mean, I don't want to be super critical, but we're always detoxifying, right? Mm-hmm. So to keep it simple, I mean, we can go more esoteric and more deep, but to keep it simple, just so people can get actionable take-home information, we have phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. Now, listeners may say, well, there's phase 3, there's phase 4. Well, just to keep it really simple, we have phase 1 and phase 2. And what's happening is we're upregulating these specific enzymes called cytochrome P450 enzymes. And these enzymes, in phase 1, they're taking toxins that may be fat-soluble, and they're turning them into water-soluble toxins. Now, water-soluble toxins now can be excreted. So it's important. Phase 1 is upregulating toxins in the fat and turning them into water soluble. And then phase 2 is excreting water-soluble toxins. So the analogy I give my patients is, imagine you got a whole bunch of, let's say, apple cores or like banana peels or, orange, like the skin on the orange, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
stuff it in the garbage disposal. Phase one is turning on the garbage disposal, right? It starts grinding it up. And then phase two is like you keep it grinded, you keep it going, and you turn the water on, and then it flushes it right out. And then eventually you hear the garbage disposal kind of quiet down. So phase
Mm-hmm.
one is the garbage disposal grinding all that solid mass up into a liquid mass. Phase two is that liquid mass being flushed out, kind of like with our detoxification pathways. Any questions on that, Barris?
Yeah, that makes sense. So, like you said, there's two halves, phase one, phase two. Almost like if you can split the liver in half. If anybody has seen or had like an anatomy class and like seen the liver, there's like this little cut section, and so one side is where, like you just mentioned, you're grabbing all of those toxins and you're reforming them, and then the other side, you're kind of, taking them out. You're sending them to the gallbladder and the kidneys, and you're letting that do its job and removing it, right?
Exactly, exactly. So, like in phase one, for instance, we have toxins we're getting exposed to. It could be drugs, it could be chemicals, it could be pesticides,
Hmm.
it could be the stuff from your hygienic products, like your moisturizer or your deodorant. Can't tell you how many women, especially because they tend to use more of those products, they're rubbing toxins literally on their body. So
Hmm.
our liver upregulates phase one, and just to give you some simple concepts, maybe a little more technical names, but a couple of the reactions that happen in phase one are going to be oxidation,
Hmm.
reduction, hydrolysis, hydration, dehalogenation. These are just the technical terms.
Hmm.
The key take homes are we're taking fat soluble toxins and we're turning them into water soluble toxins.
Yeah. So we're having all more of the oxidation and reduction, hydrolysis. What else? The dehalogenation, having some of those processes there. And then the second phase is where we would have kind of like the methylation and the amino acid conjugation kind of things going on.
Yeah, so phase two really requires a lot of sulfur-based amino acids. That's why people that, tell me, oh, well, I'm going on this juice fast and it's going to help detoxify me. And I just say, that's a nice thought, but if you know how your detoxification systems work, they actually need a lot of sulfur amino acids to work.
Hmm.
So it doesn't quite make sense that by starving the body and giving it a lack of nutrients, so to speak, that you're
Hmm.
actually going to upregulate detox pathways. Now, I don't disregard the fact that people feel better on those type of cleanses. I don't. I
Hmm.
think there are stuff happening. I think you're upregulating cellular autophagy where your body's recycling proteins. I think there's a great benefit there. I also think your body is now no longer being exposed to maybe food allergens that may have been creating inflammation.
Hmm.
So we decrease inflammation from food allergens. We give our gut a chance to rest. Let's say you have low stomach acid and maybe some gut inflammation. Well, it's a stress to digest food. So if you stop putting food into the system, that takes some stress off the tummy. It allows cellular autophagy to kick in, and it decreases exposure to food allergens. So I think a lot of people do get good benefit,
Hmm.
but I personally believe, you're not really doing the detoxification stuff like we would do in like a medical grade detox program, but there's still benefit there.
Yeah, because you do need a lot of the amino acids and B vitamins, and a lot of B vitamin rich foods, and some other fat soluble things, maybe like some antioxidants, vitamin E and vitamin uh, C, but or like even essential fatty acids in order to have a lot of these processes work, right?
Yeah, so like when phase one, we need a lot more B vitamins, right?
Hmm.
We need some glutathione, we need some amino acids in phase one. So we talk about like glutathione being the major antioxidant in the body,
Hmm.
right? Well, how's glutathione made? Well, it's made from glycine, glutamine, and cysteine. These are
Yeah.
all amino acids. So, and if you study nutrition, you'll know that a lot of vegetarian diets are lower in sulfur-based amino acids.
Yeah.
Now, rice protein, you actually get a decent bit of amino acids, but in rice protein, you still are low in methionine,
Hmm.
right? And methionine is a very important sulfur-based amino acid. So vegetarians tend to have lower amounts of sulfur amino acids. That's where I'm concerned because then you get, frankly, you may not be able to upregulate some of these pathways as well. But
Hmm.
nutrient-wise, we have some B vitamins, we have some glutathione, we have some flavonoids, and we also have some antioxidants too. Because when we actually upregulate phase one, and we take we take fat soluble toxins and
Mm-hmm.
we make them water soluble, if we're not flushing them out, there can be a lot of oxidative damage. So having things like vitamin C and vitamin E and various antioxidants that tonify the liver can be helpful. Things like
Mm-hmm.
artichoke root or silymarin or milk thistle, these are very helpful because they can tonify and buffer a lot of the stress that may be happening in the liver when we transition fat to water soluble toxins.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Sounds good. All right. So, I know there's a lot of people that want to get uh, into depth with the things because sometimes we just hear the thing and like very often, and you can maybe even look some of these things up, but people want to know the nitty gritty sometimes, and they want to make sure that, like, okay, what's really going on here? So, um, if it's cool with you, Dr. Justin, let's go into phase two. What's happening in phase two? I know there's a couple different pathways that we mentioned before, but like for instance, like glutathione conjugation, like what's happening there?
So our body's taking a lot of these amino acids and it's helping to run a lot of our detoxification pathways. So when I look at detoxification, one of my favorite tests to do to actually look at the function of what's happening is an organic acid test.
Mm-hmm.
So in an organic acid test, we run various markers that are going to give us a great indication. So for instance, one of them is p-hydroxyphenylacetate and 8-hydroxy-2-deoxyguanosine. These are like really like super long words, but they're really helpful. Those are like some oxidative detox markers. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's the glucarate, there's 2-methyl hipurate, there's orotate, hydroxybutyrate, pyroglutamate, sulfate. These are all organic acids that are a marker of detoxification. They help us know what pathways are working or aren't. And they correlate to various nutrients. So if we're low in our sulfate pathways, our sulfate organic acid pathways, that's going to mean that we need more sulfur-based amino acids.
Mm-hmm.
If we're low in glucarate pathways, well, that means we may be lower in glutathione and glycine. If we're lower in our orotate organic acids, we may need more magnesium or aspartic acid or arginine. So it's really specific. So when I want to look at someone's detox pathways, one of the best actionable tests, because there are tests that are out there, like I'm getting lots of people with 23andMe and MTHFR testing and all of these various things. And it's like, all right, great. And it's like, now what? Because we get all this information, but what's the actionable item, right? How can we change things in their diet? How can we change things in their supplement program to
Mm-hmm.
allow them to have a benefit? That's the
Mm-hmm.
question.
Yeah. So I know like one thing that's really popular right now, and I'm seeing over, the holistic health space, a lot of people talking about methylation, right? And like, oh, what's up with like the methylation? How does it work? And blah blah. But like to not get too depth just in that, because we can probably make a whole episode on that itself. But just talking about the detoxification pathway, when you run that organic acid test, you can kind of see maybe so the marker in that, and to kind of identify if you need a certain kind of you know vitamin B12 or 6, or if your body's not doing a good job removing estrogens or estrogen metabolites or whatnot.
Right. When we look at methylation, that has an influence. Um, One, methylation has a huge influence on activating genetics,
Mhm.
right? Methylation has a huge influence on mitochondrial function. It has a huge influence on gut because it influences histidine breakdown in the gut. It
Mhm.
has a huge influence on creating energy because we need B12 and folate and B6 to create healthy red blood cells. If not, we'll have a megaloblastic anemia,
Yeah.
and then we're not going to be able to carry
Not
oxygen and nutrition
not good.
properly, right? So it's going to influence mitochondrial function, energy production, how our red blood cells carry oxygen and nutrition. It influences phase two detoxification. So it really touches almost every part of our body.
Mhm.
Now, I'm seeing a lot of people with these MTHFR tests, and whether they're heterozygous or homozygous, it gets really complicated. But I look at it, there's two major genes that are being tested, excuse me, in our typical tests. It's typically the one that begins in a C, the C678, and then the A678. I just keep it really simple. It's the one that begins in a C and it's one that begins in an A. Those are the
Mhm.
real ones that I'm seeing on your conventional lab testing. Now, 23andMe runs about 6 or 7 of them. But those are the two main ones that are really supported by the literature. If I see any of my patients come back with 1 or 2 of those defects, it's really simple. I just make sure in their nutrient program that we're making sure we're giving them activated folate. We're giving them
Mm-hmm.
MTHFR, um, tetramethylhydrofolate, reductase, and ideally we're giving it to them in the L isomer form.
Mm-hmm.
L isomer means it's just in the organic chemistry perspective, the isomer is in a left rotating shape versus an R shape. So it just helps with the metabolism. People that have these MTHFR defects, they're not able to metabolize folate properly. So if we give them folic acid, they're not going to be able to metabolize it properly, and it can cause
Mm-hmm.
stress in the liver. They do much better with calcium folinate. They do much better with like a natural folate blend, or the Merck patent, which is like a metformin, which is a L isomer MTHFR. And from my perspective, the multis that I recommend all my patients, they're already doing the L MTHFR in all of them because I just make the assumption, hey, if everyone has this defect in my eyes, then no
Yeah.
one's going to be left out, right? If I give someone the right activated folate, it's not going to cause a problem if they don't need it.
Exactly. I was actually going to say the exact same thing. If you're working with a good practitioner or, or one of us, your multi that you might get is already going to be in the natural 5-MTHF form because I mean, real like folic acid is probably not even really that good of a supplement generally,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So yeah, like I'm looking one that I generally recommend is a AMPM Thorn FX and they automatically have the natural folate in comparison to the folic acid. So
Exactly.
um, and I mean Thorn does a good job and I know that you use Thorn products and some other products
Yep.
as well.
Thorn,
Yeah.
orthomolecular,
Hmm.
Designs for Health, Pure Encapsulations. Those are some really good ones. But,
Yeah.
my job as a functional medicine doctor is I want to do the most with the least, right? If we can avoid
Exactly.
expensive lab testing, let's avoid it. Some people it's
Yeah.
nice to have because I see some people
Just to
with,
know. Yeah.
yeah, with their red blood cell markers off. They may have elevated MCV or MCH or MCHC or abnormal hematocrit or RBCs or hemoglobin. These are just markers for how big the hemoglobin is, how big or small it is, and how big or small the red blood cells are.
Hmm.
So typically when we have B12 and folate issues, we start seeing red blood cells go on the higher side. They start getting bigger, more goofy, if you will, because we need folate and B12 to actually shrink down the red blood cells. Red blood cells start out big and they actually get smaller as they get more mature. So the
Hmm.
exact opposite. We start out really small and we get bigger as we get more mature.
Yeah.
They start out the opposite. So we need these nutrients. And then people think, well, that's just folate. Typically, we need B12 as well. If we don't give B12 along with the folate, there's a phenomenon known as methyl trapping that can occur, where the body won't utilize B12 as well if we just give the folate by itself. So I try to keep it really simple and give a minimum of B12 and folate, activated folate together, and potentially even B6 as well.
Yeah, definitely. And for listeners out there that don't know, usually, uh, we have this in America, bigger is better type thing. But just think about, if you were, if something was a lot thicker in your arteries or veins, and you're gonna have, the viscosity is gonna change, and it might not flow as well, and that's not a good thing either. So bigger isn't always better. Uh, so you want to make sure that is regulated and that your body is doing a good job transporting oxygen, transporting nutrients. Because that's like, when you get down to the nitty gritty, that's what really energizes your body when, your oxygen gets to your mitochondria and creates ATP when you get down to like the nitty gritty.
Absolutely. And one big concern, because heart disease is the number 1 or 2 killer in the country, cancer and
Yep.
them go back and forth, is if we don't have good quality methylation compounds, meaning folate and B12 and potentially even B6, we're not going to be able to metabolize homocysteine properly, right? So we got
Hmm.
to metabolize homocysteine to methionine. And if we can't metabolize that properly, homocysteine is very inflammatory on the arteries. and I think it was Kilmer McCulley out of Harvard. He was basically ostracized out of Harvard, saying, "Hey, this homocysteine's a really big indicator of inflammation and heart disease." So what he kind of found was if we're not methylating properly because of inadequate nutrients like folate, B12, and B6, well, our homocysteine will be higher, and that will be causing more inflammation and arterial damage. So making sure the activated folate's there, as well as B12 and B6, is going to be huge at decreasing arterial inflammation.
Yeah, sounds great. Um, Another one that we might want to talk about, uh, or actually that we've talked about, is kind of like the amino conjugation and how we need specific amino acids to neutralize some of these toxins like glycine, taurine, um, even things maybe like glutamine as well. And that's why we mentioned earlier you want to make sure that you're having an adequate protein intake and balance. So some people might need some more protein, especially if you're vegetarian or vegan out there. Make sure that you're keeping that in track. If you're having some skin issues all of a sudden popping up, then you might want to reconsider the way that you're eating. We talked about the methylation. We talked about the amino conjugation. I think we talked a little bit about the the glutathione conjugation, did we not?
Yeah, and I like to touch
Yeah.
base on a couple things.
Hmm.
So most people go to their conventional medical doctor and they get like their typical CBC done or their CMP. It's like a complete blood count or a
Hmm.
comprehensive metabolic profile. One of the common tests that you're going to get in there is you'll get usually 2 or 3 tests, and your doctor is looking at your liver function based upon ALT or alanine aminotransferase,
Hmm.
AST or aspartate aminotransferase, and or GGT, which is like gamma something transferase. Basically, ALT and AST are looking at the liver primarily. There's different isoenzymes that can be differentiated for muscle or for heart, but to keep it simple, ALT, AST are more liver, and GGT is more gallbladder. So
Hmm.
most conventional doctors are looking at these enzymes as a marker of liver function. Now, it takes a lot of damage for those enzymes to be chronically out of balance. Yeah, you're going to see GGT or maybe AST or ALT go out of balance if you have a big night of drinking, especially GGT. But to be chronically elevated, there has to be significant amount of damage there. So the problem with that is, well, if we want markers or testing that's more sensitive, picking up imbalances in liver function before they're a problem, we don't want to rely on conventional lab testing to do that. Conventional lab testing is good for pathology and dysfunction, and it can be beneficial if we look at it from a functional range, right? Typically, these enzymes, ALT and AST, if they go above your typical LabCorp test, above right around 40, they're considered high. So if we start seeing them go above 20 or 30, that could be a sign of some liver stress. But an organic acid test tends to have a little more function because then you can say, oh, well, this organic acid in that whole spectrum of detox is out of balance. This means you need more sulfur-based amino acids. Oh, there's oxidative stress. We got to add some vitamin C or some vitamin E or maybe even some tonifying herbs like cinnamon or milk thistle. So getting that perspective gives you more of an actionable item to kind of move forward with. Where the blood testing, it's kind of like, all right, it came back low, which typically it does with most people, and great, it came back high. Your doctor will pretty much just ask you, are you an alcoholic, and make sure you curtail your drinking. That's kind of the typical scenario in the conventional medicine world. So we want to have actionable items, and we want to be able to look at things in a functional way. Hey, are you starting to step out of line? What can we do right now? Is that helpful,
Yeah.
Barris?
Yeah, definitely. Really in depth. So, with that, let's so we kind of talked about the liver. We talked about a lot of the in-depth processes. Now let's talk about let's back it up a little bit. So we talked about the liver. Let's talk about some other ways that your body has detox mechanisms, because we're talking about our body's own natural detox mechanisms, how it does it on a daily basis. Um, a couple other things that we know that we have is our skin and our colon, our kidney, our bladder, and even our lungs, because when we breathe, we're breathing out a certain amount of carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
Um, and not to get it confused, because some people think like, oh, we always want to be alkaline, you want to get rid of as
Yeah.
much. Um, uh, if you ever see those people hyperventilating, uh, that's and they put a brown bag over their mouth in order to breathe in some more carbon
Yeah.
dioxide and balance out the
Yeah,
pressure.
it's because they're
Uh,
too alkaline, right?
yeah, exactly. There can be a problem with that. So let's not let's not get it confused here. But
Exactly.
so so that's so with that being said, carbon dioxide isn't all evil, right? So there's always a fine line. So let's start off with like the skin and how that can be a really good indicator whether you might have some problems in your detoxification.
So the skin is actually one of the largest organ in the body. It's
Hmm.
considered to be the integumentary system, and the skin will use and push things through it as a means of detoxification. So if you see a rash or you see, um, pimples or cyst, right? Typically, when I
Hmm.
see skin stuff, I'm automatically thinking impaired detox. I'm automatically thinking dysbiosis and impaired gut.
Yeah.
So the skin, and I heard this from Paul Chek, I think in a lecture maybe 5 or 10 years ago. He said something like, "Your skin is the mirror of your gut." So if you have
Yeah.
bad skin, I always think, man, if it doesn't look good on the outside, imagine what it looks like on the inside.
Yeah. I mean, in your skin and your gut kind of do similar things if you think about, you have something covering you on the outside, but then there's like a wet uh mucosa version on the inside, covering your it's almost like that's your internal skin because you can just breathe things in, inhale, and there's things coming into your body that way as well. So that's also a border to the environment, right?
Absolutely. And if you want to get an idea of how gross some people are on the inside, just, ask them what their stool smells like. Does it smell kind of earthy, or does it smell like like someone died in there, right? It should
It-
not smell like someone died in there unless you had like a cheat day or you consume too much sugar and the critters in your tummy are going crazy. It should smell
right.
somewhat earthy. It shouldn't be like, wow, someone died.
Yeah, when you flush the toilet, like people shouldn't really know if you went pee or poop that often.
Shouldn't be that
Uh,
bad.
it should like I I always think it's funny that kind of like that Friday or next Friday joke that people always they'll come with the spray and they're like you might want to wait 35 to 45 minutes before you go in
Yeah,
there. It's like
exactly.
if that's happening, like that's not a good sign.
Not good, exactly. And also, I'm gonna get a little bit, little TMI, but I'm gonna go there. And this show is kind of off limits. So, one of the things, if you're wiping more than 3 to 5 times, you got a problem.
Yeah,
All right,
you got a
you got
problem.
a problem. At the most, 5 wipes, ideally 3 wipes. And again, it's because the stool is just in a consistency where lots of bad stuff's coming out and your gut's not doing too well. When your gut's healthier, it's easier to do your wipes. It shouldn't be more than 3 to 5. So
Yeah.
anyone, next time you go, take a look at your stool. Is it kind of, it shouldn't smell great. It shouldn't smell like perfume or anything, but it should smell kind of earthy, but it shouldn't be like, it shouldn't clear a room out.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because I always feel my best and this is gonna sound really weird, but um, when when I go to wipe and there's nothing on the toilet paper, and I'm like, yes, complete elimination. Like that's how you know we're like health nerds and we
Oh, yeah.
actually get excited for that. But I'm like, oh yeah, I know that it's not, I didn't really pinch anything off. It just all came out,
Yeah.
and I'm good to go,
Yeah.
right? Versus like, and I know like if I ate some rant like there if usually when I go out to eat I'm eating something good, but if I just go like eat a Domino's pizza or something cheap like that, I guess for an example, and I'm in the bathroom and I'm trying to hurry up and get out of there because usually people can't tell if I went number 1 or number
Yeah.
2. But if I'm in there for a while like wiping and I'm like, "Oh man, like I don't even what if I have to come back in a few minutes to go again?" Like I hate that
Yeah, or
feeling.
you get
So,
patients. I get patients where they literally have to wipe so much they start bleeding in the rectum, and I see that a
oh yeah,
lot.
that's
I
not
see that a
good.
lot, and that's a common sign of parasites too. Just because the rectum gets so itchy that it's almost like when you're
Yep.
wiping up there, it's like you're kind of like scratching an itch, so to speak, and then
That's
you can
yeah.
literally draw blood. I see that a lot in patients. That's a common sign of parasites. That itchy butt to the point where you're wiping and you're seeing a little bit of blood. That happens. See that a lot. But
Yeah.
like I know I'm having a good day. Like when I have a good bowel movement and I get like 3 wipes in there and I walk out and I'm like, can't even smell it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm on track for a good day.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
fresh. You know what I mean? Like if you if you need wet, like if you want wet wipes, that's cool. That's perfectly
Yep.
fine. Like that's make you really clean. But if it's like an absolute desire need because you that's not a good thing. So I bet you guys didn't think you guys were gonna hear all that today, but had to we over deliver
We
over here at
try.
Beyond
Yeah,
Wellness
under
Radio,
promise, over
right?
deliver. And also, half of your stool is gut bacteria, right? So this still
Yeah.
plays into our, topic of the day being detox. Half of that stool is gut bacteria. So having, good ample size stools, passing about 12 inches per day, either, 3 4-inch trains, 2 6-inch trains, or just a one large 12-inch train, that's good because we're getting rid of a lot of bacterial toxins. And this is important because when we have dysbiosis in the gut, dysbiosis can actually make the removal of these toxins harder. So let me go
Hmm.
into depth. So when we have imbalance of bad bacteria, these bacteria can produce this enzyme called beta glucuronidase. All right, and
Hmm.
beta glucuronidase, what it does is it can unconjugate. So what happens is bile will come in there and it will conjugate. It will bind to a toxin or to a compound, and then hopefully excrete it via the stool. But when beta glucuronidase hits that conjugated bile, it can actually unbind it. It can deconjugate it, and then now that compound is free. It can go and it can be
Yeah.
reabsorbed, or there can be a process known as auto intoxication where it can be reabsorbed and create more toxicity in the body. So if gut bacteria is out of balance, it can affect how the body detoxifies because it can go around and uncleave all of this bile that may be attached to toxins. Now, this goes on to my further point where if you're going to do like a really good medical grade, functional medicine
Uh,
detox program, always make sure the gut is really supported first. Make sure you have it.
yeah, that
Yeah.
I was gonna go on to that point and give you a toss up for you to knock this one out the park and say, if a client comes to you and they have really bad constipation and they poop once every 3 days, is it a good idea for them to try to cleanse or try to go on a super detox that time, or should they make sure they get things
They should
moving
definitely
first?
get things moving first. Again, the hepatobiliary system, right? That's fancy medical language for gallbladder and liver, right? They're
Hmm.
incredibly important at dumping out toxins that may be in the bile. That bile then gets squirted out the gallbladder into the intestinal tract. And if that bacteria is out of balance, it's going to wreak havoc. Or let's say you're just not having bowel movements and that bacteria can't come out fast enough. Well, that's going to screw things up too. And then we won't even get into it,
Yeah.
but I'll just put a little precursor out there. Conventional medicine knows in your conventional medical textbooks, if you look at the detoxification of metals, well, 50% of metals are going to be detoxified via the hepatobiliary system. And children's
Hmm.
hepatobiliary systems don't form to age 1 to 2. So again, think about that from the perspective of kids getting all these vaccines, and only a few of them have mercury today, but a lot of them still have aluminum, and aluminum's a metal, and it's going to be needed to be excreted out the hepatobiliary system. So not smart if you're giving kids compounds that are going to be needed to be excreted out of pathways that aren't developed yet. But that's
Hmm.
a whole other topic.
Yeah,
But I'm just putting that
definitely.
in there because metals and detox and the hepatobiliary system are all tied together. They need to be working. That's why any person I see that's gotten into trouble with a heavy metal detox, they've gotten in there because they started out with it. They didn't support inflammation. They didn't support gut yet, and they're reabsorbing all of these toxins. And kind of like I said before, right? Phase one, if we don't bring phase one through phase two, we can actually create more problems because now we have all these toxins in phase one that are now water soluble. And if we can't get them out of the system, it's going to make a whole host of a problem. It's like grinding up all of like the apple cores and like the orange peels. It's ground up. It can't
Hmm.
come down. We start putting the water down. It's clogged and it starts coming up and filling up our sink. That's kind of like what's
Yeah.
happening in our bodies. And now we have this sink full of like ground up mush and it's no longer functional. We can't wash our hands or do our dishes anymore.
It's funny that you mentioned that because my garbage disposal is a little backed up right now. It's perfect analogy. I was trying to think of one myself, and I'm like, ooh, that might I might just want to keep that one because it's so relevant to me. But I was even thinking, if say you're throwing away, junk
Yeah.
mail, right? And you want to make it easier to toss, and you don't want your information on it. Maybe you throw it into the
Right.
paper shredder, right? Maybe that's the liver where you're breaking it down and making it easier to dump, and then you dump it into, your your garbage. But if you're backed up, right, or maybe the garbage men don't come, right, because you're constipated and it doesn't ship it away, you're not pooping it out, so you just keep piling up garbage, right? And hopefully, it's just paper and just recycling. But what if you're throwing away like all kinds of junk food and you just have all that
Yes.
piling up? So maybe eventually you have to bring some of it back inside the house. That's what's happening with your body if you're not getting that full removal. So your detoxification pathways, let's not forget, you know, that's the easiest way to be like, oh yeah, you detox every day, you breathe, you
Right.
go pee, and you
Yes.
poop, right? And pooping is a big way to eliminate a lot of
Yes.
toxins
So if you're
fast.
one of these people and you're like, well, I'm thinking of a detox program. Well, the first thing is just make sure you're drinking enough water, half your body weight. All right. Make sure you're eating
Yeah.
organic food, right? Make sure you're moving and sweating a little bit. Like those are just super
Mhm.
simple things where if you haven't even done that yet, don't even waste your money doing a detox program. It's not even worth
Yeah.
it. Now, let's say you're one of these people and you're already
Yeah.
pretty darn healthy and you have good poops and good skin and you're feeling pretty good and your hormones are rocking it. Well, now may be a good time to do a detox program. There are just good general ones that you can do
Yeah.
that you may not even need to test. But then at some point, once you're at a level of health, you just don't want to pull out the shotgun or the grenade. You want to pull out the sniper rifle and really make sure you're targeting specific pathways.
Yeah. And or sometimes it could be the people that are already doing a lot of the right things, exercising, uh, often, 2 to 3 times a week, um, eating organic foods, maybe even taking some supplementation, but maybe they're doing all the right things, sleeping right, but maybe you just have some skin issues and you're wondering why you're still, getting acne and you're 26 years old, or why you wake up uh, exhausted every day, but you get 9 to 10 hours of sleep. Like you might also be in the case where, okay, maybe I need some testing, maybe I need a pinpoint because I'm doing a lot of the right things. I just got to figure out what area of my body is kind of slipping. Where's the where am I
Exactly.
misfiring at?
Exactly. So for
Right.
people right now,
Hmm.
make sure you got the diet and lifestyle stuff dialed in. If you don't, reach out to Barris, reach out to me. We can help get you on the right start with that. If you're at a good level and you want to get to the next level, running an organic acid test can be helpful. It can look at dysbiosis, it can look at nutrient deficiencies, it can look at all of your detox pathways and can be very, very helpful. The only caveat with organic acid testing is if you're having digestive issues where you're not absorbing stuff, like you're low in protein, or if you're a vegetarian vegan and you're not consuming enough protein, organic acids are derived from amino acids. So if you're not getting enough amino acids in the system, it could definitely throw off the testing. So I always make sure that people are consuming and digesting and breaking down at least enough protein so I feel confident that we're not going to get false negatives on the organic acid testing. That's one thing a
Hmm.
lot of people don't really touch upon, but I want to make sure everyone's aware of it here.
Yeah, that's always a little bit harder when you have someone testing who maybe I usually get like maybe the really older women or petite women or someone who's just a vegan or vegetarian who might not eat enough, but sometimes you got to say like, hey, you need like uh you know tonight you're gonna have a steak or something like that, or before you run this test, like make sure you eat a nice piece of chicken because I want to see if it
Yeah.
breaks down
Yeah.
properly or something
And
like.
if you want to look at nutrients in a person that maybe have gut, compromised gut issues, compromised protein, not enough protein and fat, a better test to look at those nutrients if they're already low in protein would be more like a SpectraCell or a intracellular nutrient test
Mm,
that like Metagenics or Genova runs. That'd be a better one if they're going to be low in protein, but Again, organic acids tend to do a really good job as long as the diet and the protein's up. I typically, if I see someone with protein issues or digestion stuff, I tend to wait a couple of months before we do an organic acid test just to make sure the diet's dialed in, they're breaking down their food, and they're on the right track.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so we talked a lot about what detox is and what and our body's own detox mechanisms. We talked about the liver, we talked about the skin, the colon, even the lungs a little bit. So one thing that people might ask is, well, if we have all of these mechanisms in our body already, and we talked about how they might misfire, but they might still question, well, why do we need, to run a detox program? Why would I need to detox? And uh, and I know you could knock this one out the park. So why would be there's all these toxins and all this stuff in our environment. So why would we need if our body
Well, our
does the
body
job
does do the
already?
job, and the healthier you are, and the better quality food and water and stress and sleep, you're going to be better. But I mean, let's face it, there are about 60 different thousand compounds that are out there that really haven't even been tested. It's about 1 to 2 billion pounds of production of
Hmm.
pesticides per year. Not to mention the GMOs have made us more dependent upon
Yeah.
Roundup. Roundup thing is a chemical chelator. It kills the weeds by pulling away and stripping away their nutrients, right? So then that strips away nutrients from plants. So then we have nutritional deficiencies in our food. They've done studies where they've looked at areas untouched from humans, like up in Antarctica, and melted various glaciers and tested them chemically, and they found chemicals and crap in there. So it's like, man, like you can be hundreds of miles
Yeah.
away from industry and humans and still get exposed to these crap. I mean, the environmental wellness group or environmental working group, I think it is, tested, I think 30 or 40 babies. They tested the umbilical cord fluid and they found 130 chemicals. Now, again, you're going to have some people that are
Wow.
going to be fine, right? They produce lots of glutathione. They have good gallbladder and good gut function where they can just flush these things out. But then you have kids that produce low glutathione. You have kids that are more sensitive. And these are the kids that are going to be they're going to come down with autism, frankly. They have a hard time removing various toxins, right?
Hmm.
Autism study 10 years ago was on baby's hair. And they looked at baby's hair and they said, "Hey, look, it's interesting. We found the least amount of mercury in these autistic kids' hair. The kids that didn't have autism had a higher amount of mercury in the hair. They were actually removing it. The kids that had less autism, or I'm sorry, the kids that had more autism had less mercury in the hair. So people looked at it and said, hey, mercury isn't a problem because look, these autistic kids don't even have much mercury in the hair. But they didn't look at it from the perspective of no, the hair is a means of detoxifying and pushing things out. They couldn't push it out. It was stuck in their tissues.
Yeah. It's almost like when people start to do these which sometimes could be important but sometimes could throw you off, um, these urine, you know to test the pH, but the pH of the
Yes.
blood is highly
Oh, absolutely.
regulated. Your body doesn't want to throw that off. uh, and people say like, oh, like, want to balance the pH, and if it's acid, it's bad, but if it's alkaline, it's good. Well, that's your body's way to regulate it, is to pee off the extra stuff it doesn't need. The same way, if we take a boatload of B vitamins,
Yeah.
it's going to look like Gatorade, or it's going to be neon color. It's like your body takes what it needs, and it uses the urine as a detoxification mechanism to excrete stuff. So it's that the same way, with the mercury example that you said. And speaking of that, um, if you look at a lot, and I mean, you can find probably so many documentaries on these kind of things, but if you look at a lot of these petrochemical companies, or these fracking companies, or these companies that blow up mountains in order to get the stored carbon from super deep fossil fuels. um, if there's a lot of the times, you find a community that is near one of those places, a lot of the children have or the schools have a really imbalanced amount, or a really highly odd number of kids that do have autism or have problems, neurological problems. And it's like, okay, maybe generally there might be, a couple autistic kids in a school, maybe one or two. But if you go around these locations where they're fracking or where they have, petrochemical companies, it's like the number is crazy. Like there's like two whole classrooms or maybe three classrooms with different autistic kids. And it's like, wait, maybe there's a sign here, but there's, uh, if you have a lot of money from those, you
We're
know what I
getting
mean?
exposed to more chemicals, right? Let's say you have genetic methylation defects and you're taking your folic acid multivitamin, you got
Hmm.
some gut issues, right? So you're not conjugating the all of the crud that your liver and gallbladder are spitting out. You got a lot of dysbiosis. You're constipated, and you're being exposed to all this environmental crap. You're going to be at risk, right? And especially if you give birth, you're going to probably pass on
Hmm.
those same predispositions to your children, and they're going to be at risk for, autism. I mean, I always look at autistic kids as the canary in the coal mine for the environment, right? I mean, I think what's the expression?
Yeah.
Genetics loads the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger. So again, we got to be careful. I mean, a
Hmm.
lot of these detoxification programs may not have been, appropriate 50, 60, 80 years ago. Good food and good clean environment may have been enough. But in today's world, I really believe it's very important. Just starting out, yeah, just work on stopping the the flood of chemicals into your body, right? Like detoxification is more like letting the toxins that
Hmm.
are already in there out easier in a safe way. But the lifestyle and the
Hmm.
diet stuff is just
Yeah,
preventing the massive amount getting in there in the first place. So work on that first.
exactly. So, uh, like we mentioned earlier, if you guys are doing a lot of the right things, you guys are eating the right food, exercising, making sure you're preventing a lot of these toxins from coming in first, but you're still finding that you're having problems removing them. Maybe your skin's not where you want it to be. Maybe your weight's a little. You're wondering why you can't lose like this extra 10 pounds, and you're doing everything right. Um, or maybe you just have very, chronic fatigue or some brain information inflammation. Maybe I do. but but with that being said, go to beyondwellnessradio.com. Make sure you get in contact with us. Let us know if you have these issues. You can set up a conversation so that way, we can take that next step.
Take the next step and really do a comprehensive nutrient replacement detox program. The best next step would be to run a really good quality comprehensive organic acid test. And again, you can reach out to us. You can find the lab testing in my
Mhm.
store at justinhealth.com/shop. Click on the lab test tab and you'll find the comprehensive Genova organic acid test, and that can be the next right thing to order for you. I just did mine 2 days ago. I run mine twice a year, every 6 months. Just ran my wife's as well. So that's something that I believe in, and I do twice a year and kind of dial in my supplement and detox program accordingly.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I know we went kind of in depth and deep, and we kept it more on the lifestyle and stuff like that, and we gave an opportunity for people to come in and kind of find things out. But I know there's going to be some people wondering, just like, are there any like, really strong or special foods that I can take, like, or any supplements that, like, maybe I'm doing fine, maybe they're, an active person and they just want, that next little edge. Maybe, could I drink some lemon water, some milk thistle?
Excellent source of glutathione precursors is going to be grass-fed whey protein. Grass-fed whey protein is great. If
Yep.
you're a vegan vegetarian, if you can get the grass-fed whey protein in, that will be awesome. If not, about 2 grams a day of NAC. You just got to be careful though. If you got some detox issues, you may feel worse and have a die-off or Herxheimer's reaction because of it. So again, like I said, you want to make sure the gut's working well.
Mhm.
If not, you can juice up some cruciferous vegetables. Good old cruciferous vegetable juice is great. Just be careful with doing too much fruit because that can,
Mhm.
create more dysbiosis and more fungal stuff because of all the critters in there. So you just got to be careful. Maybe a little bit of a
Yeah.
small amount of pineapple or a small amount of green apple or carrot, just a little bit to maybe add a little taste to it. But that can be a good thing to start. So you're a vegetarian and some
Yeah.
good quality juice, green juice, and ideally some grass-fed whey protein are some great places to start.
Yeah. Definitely. Um, any special herbs? I know if you like to cook, make sure you're using different herbs. Like, that's an easy way to, putting like turmeric and black pepper, there you go. You get some extra antioxidants and some anti-inflammation stuff. So if you're cooking, like use a lot of different spices and herbs, not only because it will make your food taste better, but it's good for you as well.
It's not going to be a full-on program, but Yogi makes a good detox tea that's nice. Yeah, detox tea by Yogi, that's very good. I use, a really good simple thing is just silymarin, artichoke, and turmeric. I use a liposomal formula of that, more for tonification and antioxidant support. That's always very helpful. And if you have gallbladder stuff where you're not breaking down fat well, you may have a history of gallbladder issues. You may get that little bit of tenderness under the right side of the rib cage. Some extra fringe tree or artichoke, that can be very helpful at loosening up bile flow, maybe adding a little bit of beets into your diet as well. Also, one thing, just take some beets, do a transit time test. Make sure you're eliminating your stool within 20 to 24 hours at the 24 at the most, 20 ideally. So make sure that's happening. If you're getting your stool out in 20, 24 hours, then you'd probably be an okay candidate for a detox program. That's also not good because you're not going to be absorbing stuff, and it probably wouldn't be solid anyway if it was coming out in 5 hours. But you're going to be nutrient deficient because what's happening there is your body's like, holy crap, literally. There's a whole bunch of toxicity in my colon. Well, what happens when things are toxic? We want to dilute it, so the body just sucks all this water into the colon. It dilutes a lot of the toxins. Why? Because the solution to pollution is dilution. Say that 10 times fast. So it dilutes a lot of the toxins in the colon and then flushes it out.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I'm thinking some omega-3 fatty acids would probably be beneficial, and maybe like the coconut oil with the caprylic acid that's also in butter and stuff like that.
If we take in more fat, high quality fat, it kind of is like that solution to pollution is dilution, right? We're diluting a lot of the fats that are toxic, and our body has some fats to remove or to help bind to it, so it makes it less concentrated, if you will. So good quality fats are going to help with fat soluble toxin detox. So don't be one of those people that goes low fat. It's not going to be good for your detoxification system.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that sounds awesome. A lot of great key points, a lot of great things that people could take action on today. And with that being said, you guys, again, we really appreciate it when you guys ask us questions. It gives us more ways to help you guys out. And if you go to beyondwellnessradio.com, there's a link right there that you can click on to write a review. This helps us get the show out to more people and get this message heard. Because I wish that I would have heard this stuff when I was.
I wish I was 11 years old with all this good information. But we want to provide you guys with awesome information. So let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. We want good feedback. We want to improve this show for you. Let us know some great topics. We have a new app up there. You can speak your question and we'll play it live on the show. And we just want to get you guys better information, help you guys get healthier. So let us know what we can do to be better.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to beyondwellnessradio.com/question. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.